Hello and welcome to MC in Focus. I'm John Wildeman.
And I'm Robin Smith. Happy Friday to you all. We're glad you could join us today. This week we have stories that might
As
jumpstart
well as a
your
story
weekend.
that will hopefully inspire you to take action, even while quarantined. But first, our top story. New development being sued. Fowler was a key witness for the defense when stating that Floyd's death was a result of heart disease and drug use and not due to Chauvin's use of force. This was disputed by the prosecutor, who noticed similarities between this testimony and another in the case of Anton Black in 2018. There might be grounds for a cover-up in Black's autopsy report. As long as the possibility exists, Fowler's credibility will be called into question.
President Biden has been moving forward with gun reform. He has unveiled 6 executive actions that will be going into effect within the next 2 months. Within the next 30 days, the initiative to ban ghost guns will be put into effect. Ghost guns are guns that are made using a 3D printer. They are mostly made out of plastic and are untraceable because there are no serial numbers. The most striking aspect of ghost guns is that they can be attained without a background check. Background checks only apply to fully assembled guns. Ghost guns are not fully assembled because the receivers, which ensures the gun is functional, require additional steps to be functional. Hopefully, this executive order, along with the other 5, will help curb gun violence.
Fair housing advocates say the state isn't doing enough to stop evictions, particularly during the pandemic. This, as several bills meant to expand protections for renters failed to pass the Maryland legislature on Monday. Landlords argued intensely against the bill, saying it was unnecessary and that lawmakers should spend their time streamlining federal relief instead of determining protections for renters on the state level. Lawmakers in favor of the relief bill now intend to lobby Republican Governor Larry Hogan to use executive power to enact renter protection. Currently, 200,000 renters households in Maryland are at risk of eviction.
Could your cat's food be a danger to you? The Meow Mix brand cat food has had a recall on their bags of Original Choice dried cat food due to the batch being potentially contaminated with salmonella. The bacteria will cause open sores in animals, and there have been studies of salmonella being transmittable airborne, making it dangerous for those that have weakened immune systems from COVID. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, salmonella kills about 420 Americans a year and hospitalizes another 26,500. To learn more about the bacterium and how to take preventive measures, visit cambridge.org for further information.
Montgomery County has approved the new COVID-19 guidelines for summer camps next season. The council voted unanimously on Tuesday for new regulations, including the restriction of campers outside the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. Camp areas are to have a COVID protocol plan approved by a health officer. Camp activities will also need to be split into groups no larger than 25 for indoor and 50 for outdoor functions. Group members will not be allowed to interact with members of a different group at the camp. Last year, the pandemic took summer camps away, but local kids should be excited to see them return this year.
The pandemic has impacted all of us in many ways. While we're trying to stay safe, here are 3 ways that may help reducing the risk of severe COVID. Kaiser Permanente in the British Journal of Sports Medicine suggests these activities. A 5 to 10 minute walk around the neighborhood will burn fat and boost your health. Another way is practicing short spurts of an activity. Sit-ups or leg stretching will get your leg stretching for a few minutes every hour will get your blood flowing and make you more focused. Also, consider playing a recreational sports. Whether it's basketball, soccer, or any other sport, get out there with a friend and exercise your body. All of these are very beneficial ways of reducing the stop of severe COVID.
Maryland will soon be the newest state to adopt legal sports gambling. The Senate passed Bill HB 940 on Monday afternoon, which would legalize sports betting after Governor Larry Hogan signs the bill into effect. The Senate has been tempering the bill's stipulations since the House of Delegates passed it on March 11th. The state will tax sports betting revenue at 15%, giving Maryland an estimated economic impact of $19 million through 2026. The bill is widely expected to pass and be implemented in time for the 2021 NFL season. Coming up on MC in Focus, here's a sneak preview on today's featured story that might give a fighting chance toward the steady incline of unemployment.
While most businesses have not been able to survive the pandemic, one man is bound and determined to make his newest venture thrive and survive. Perry Smith, an Arkansas entrepreneur, has made a mark in his community from food combinations of classic with unique to giving a guiding hand to companies that are just as ambitious. Mr. Smith has worked diligently to give those that are still able-bodied and strong-minded an opportunity to become financially stable once again. He continues with his generous spirit throughout the world's crisis even now, as he is planning to reinvent a time-worn franchise by taking them on the road. For him, this project is more than just providing hospitality. They will be his symbol of perseverance and humility while combating the strain on unemployment in the midst of COVID-19. Join me as we look into this man of valor on where his drive to success stems from, as well as making his food trucks the new jumpstart for the economy.
Sure. And that's coming up next in MC in Focus. Now enjoy our student-made PSAs and we'll be right back for more. Stay tuned.
Now that's something that you should always remember. Now we'll join Christina Mann for her interview with the Man of Valor.
Hi, Christina. How are you?
Hello. First off, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to do so.
I looked at your history of how you started everything, and it's very impressive.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Was that the biggest inspiration that led you to the actions that you've done? Like, was this your final goal in mind?
My perspective changed a little bit around 2010. The transportation universe was changing hospitality. And I say that because we started to see a rise in food trucks, and we also started to see how Uber and ride sharing was affecting our business. And well, Rockville is, as you know, is a very large location.
Yes, it is.
We had 450 seats. It was a huge location. And what I realized, unfortunately, I was talking to my partners about this. I said, I think we need to be a little bit more adaptable. And they wanted to stay with the traditional model. And so I said, okay, well, at this point, I've been in this for almost 10 years here. And I think it's probably time for me to go ahead and sell my shares back so I can begin working on something else. But I had begun working in my earlier days, my home state of Arkansas, on a concept called Minuteman. And that's really what I'm working on now. Minuteman is a legacy hamburger concept in Arkansas. I had begun doing my research on this. Minuteman was a concept that was formed in 1948 by a veteran. And Minuteman had 57 locations across the state of Arkansas. And that's where my family's originally from.
Now then, I noticed that this particular business has had a great effect on you during your formative years. So I was just wondering, did you have to make any changes to your franchise to keep up with the newer generation? Like, for example, how you advertise, maybe the menu, the locations?
So I started to look into Minuteman and realized that all of the intellectual property, the restaurants had generally mostly shut down in the 90s. So I realized that with one Minuteman left standing in a very small town in South Arkansas, what was available was all of the branding, since 1948, the branding, the intellectual property associated with this great concept that had been across the state, and it was wide open. So I said, well, if I'm going to go back into hospitality, I'd like to do it with something like this. And so where that leads us to is we're working on our mobile doing food trucks, because again, remember I had talked about that. I said, mobility and the way people are eating and dining is different. We're expanding our mobile capacity down there, which is a little bit new again for Arkansas. There aren't quite as many food trucks. And what we'll ultimately want to do is to set up a franchise opportunity, type of fluid company where people can either have an opportunity to put in veterans to put in a fixed restaurant, or they can have a food truck.
Sounds like this is something you're really, really proud of. That's the one thing I am glad to hear. It actually seems like you have a tie-in to that restaurant, since it looks like in your formative years that you've actually gone to that restaurant a few times, and hopefully you had nothing but good memories.
Thank you, because I see you've done your homework. And my father had taken me to Minuteman, and Minuteman, what was interesting again about it is that Minuteman was essentially the Starbucks of the state of Arkansas. Our hope ultimately for Minuteman is to really pay it forward. And so with the branding, with the history of it, what we like to do, and this is what does excite me, is provide franchises for veterans.
I do have one final question.
Sure.
I am curious about, with everything happening, the current crisis, the pandemic, has anything actually changed for you in regards, like you're no longer hands-on, or?
We decided to actually launch Minuteman at a very critical point. Mm-hmm. And we knew the pandemic was coming. We had to roll the dice and say, do we have the resources to be able to ride it out? So it was a strategic decision to actually open Minuteman, and we did in September of this past year. Right now, what we've seen so far in the business is that Minuteman is coming back to Arkansas. There's a big awareness there. In our case, the easy answer is business would be better if the pandemic didn't exist. The one thing I think is always important is to look into trying to find, you have to find opportunity. And we talked about this as a group, but what we've done is we've actually pivoted. It forced us to be a little bit more creative. And so we aggressively went after the mobile operation, which was really a tier 3 for us. And because of that, we've been able to balance out, our margins to be able to accommodate that. So anybody who watches this, yes, things can be incredibly stressful, but at the same time, innovation can come. And if you rely on your teammates and rely on those around you and say, we will make our way out of this, you can find ways to do that. So as I mentioned, advancing our mobile capacity to be able to push Minuteman out into the communities, we've been blessed. We've been blessed. And it has been very difficult because sometimes, like I said, the pandemic has made business a roller coaster. But I think if you stay, if you have your commitments and you honor those commitments and you stay with them, and yes, the stress will happen, and hopefully you don't panic, and restaurants will come back, and they'll come back in different forms. And so the next year is going to be very exciting.
And definitely, considering a lot of people who want to get out, have the fresh air after all the pandemic is over, they're definitely going to be a lot more active. So this will really help when it comes to your businesses, not just food trucks, but a few other places as well, would see that business thrive. So on behalf of MC and Focus, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule today.
Thank you, Christina. Well, very much. It's been great. I've really.
Thanks for joining us today. We'd like to again thank our guest, Perry Smith, for sharing his vision, as well as the students of MC for their hard work and creativity.
For more information of any of the stories you heard today, viewers can visit these sites listed at the bottom of the screen.
Tune in next week for a surprise that our viewers may want to look into. Until then, I'm John Wildeman.
And this is Robin Smith. Hope you have a great weekend.
Nope. Ain't nobody got time for that. Wrong!
Just because we're hundreds of miles from civilized folk, there's no need to forget your manners.